Hey guys, and welcome back to another podcast. Today we are very fortunate to be joined by Felix, who is on the other side of the world to us, based in England. He is a tennis player who has his own YouTube channel and also has aspirations of going professional. So Felix, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, not a problem. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So we'll just get into a bit of an introduction for the people that don't know you. So how did you sort of fall in love with tennis to start with?
Well, I originally started playing around the age of 7, so it was a mixture between a few sports at the time. I think it was football, rugby, and tennis. And for me, I enjoyed tennis the most, so that's what I was playing on a more kind of day-to-day basis. I was wanting to play it the most. I had my most friends were playing tennis, and then it kind of blossomed from there. I started playing tournaments within the UK, and I really kind of began to love the journey, love the game. And then, of course, my younger brother started playing tennis as well. So we kind of both then started our tennis journeys, and it's kind of blossomed since then. And we've enjoyed the journey kind of ever since we started. I mean, it was a kind of slow process of starting to play. It was kind of, we were eased into it rather than kind of starting from day one. But kind of that's what's made me appreciate kind of the whole journey of the fact that it's not like, full focus the whole time. It's been kind of, me pushing to try and play as much as possible, and I guess my parents helping me with that, and yeah, just enjoying it as I'm going along.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think as well, if you get so into it so early, you can burn out as well. So that's sort of good that you were eased into it. Did your parents play at all, or are they sporty?
No, so my parents didn't do. My mum did some like gymnastic stuff when she was maybe at school, but nothing competitive. My dad, no sports, nothing at all with tennis, either of them. So where the kind of the tennis genes have come from, or I have no tennis genes from my parents, I can say that. But yeah, I mean, they're both pretty athletic, but yeah, just not really playing like a competitive level of sports.
Awesome. And that can actually make it more impressive. Like I was the same. A lot of my peers around me had like fathers as tennis coaches and stuff. And I was one of the few kids, maybe like you, that parents were maybe athletic, but didn't actually have that as much that tennis knowledge. That's pretty cool. So how did you sort of then transition into making a YouTube channel as well as playing tennis?
Yeah, I guess it's a long story. Well, I'll try and keep it short. Basically, we started like with Instagram. My dad was kind of the guy that was kind of doing the pictures, and me and my brother were maybe 10 and 8 at the time or something like that. And we were kind of just enjoying it. He was just doing a lot of the pictures and stuff. And then we've started posting some videos of us playing, and they seemed to do pretty well. So we said, or mainly my dad said, like, let's hop on this kind of YouTube thing. This was like, 7, 8 years ago. And this was kind of when platform was growing. And I guess now when you see like TikTok and stuff, those are platforms that are growing. Everyone's like, oh, let's make a TikTok. It was one of those things, I think, more than specifically like a strategy. And then we kind of started making, some very basic videos of us just playing, like just filming with the camera, one cut, just showing us. But I think what was made it unique was the fact that not many other people were showing it or showing anything within their tennis journeys. And I guess it's kind of blossomed from there, and the fact that me and my brother have done more work towards it. I've kind of helped now in the last few months or years with kind of the production side of things, ideas, filming. And I guess, yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah, because I guess like when I first stumbled across your videos, it would have been like ages ago. I think it was those stereotype videos you did. And a lot of the concepts weren't anything crazy. Like they were very good stereotypes because they were very like everyone could relate to them, but there wasn't much else out there, as you said. Like, tennis is pretty, you go.
Yeah, I agree, because looking back at them now, I definitely wouldn't I definitely wouldn't post them now, and I definitely wouldn't do them in the same way, because obviously the internet has changed so much. But when you look through, they were very simple, but they did very well at the time for kind of the ecosystem, because nobody else did anything like that. But also the fact that it was kind of a bit unique, it was a bit different from what people would usually do. And I think, going forwards as well, that's something we try and, I'm trying to foster as well, as a kind of environment on our page where we're doing something slightly different that other people are doing it, kind of moving ahead of the trend, really. And I think that's something that kind of going forwards, I like to try and, keep up, because like you said, the stereotypes was a good example of something which was a bit different, that did pretty well for at the time. And I enjoy filming them, but it's a bit cringe looking back at it now.
Yeah, I know what you mean. but sometimes videos like that can actually, they can do better because they're not, it's great. Like you're filming and everything in your production now has improved like massive amount. But sometimes with that stereotypes, it was quite good how it was quite funny and just
a bit more relatable,
Yeah, very relatable. So going now to sort of, I guess I've noticed your channel sort of really like booming because of this new series you're doing, which is Road to 1 ATP Point. I think the series is really, really cool. Like I really enjoyed that previous one talking about the money side of it. I think that's really, really interesting and maybe something people don't talk about enough. So how did that sort of idea to make that a year-long, series, how did that sort of come about?
Well, I made the decision to take a year off between going to university and kind of finishing secondary school here in the UK. And I kind of was talking to my dad, like, obviously we have this kind of social channel that was maybe, not huge, but obviously, big enough to kind of want to keep it going throughout kind of, or have a reason to like really, I wanted to make something out of the year. And so we kind of brainstormed some ideas on how exactly we want to do that. And then obviously I said, okay, well, if I'm trying to kind of get to that level anyway, why don't we just say I'm trying to get 1 ATP point, just put it out there. And maybe it's realistic, maybe it isn't, depending on how much I improve. I obviously didn't know kind of how much I was going to, benefit from that year off training full time for the first time in my life, like with no school. So I think pretty ambitious aim for the level that I was at. But I think, again, it's one of those things you have the idea and you're like, oh, that kind of sticks, that I like that, the way that sounds. And it was one of those moments kind of, we both like, me and my dad were kind of brainstorming ideas for maybe what we would call it. We both looked at each other and it was like one of those aha moments, like that has a reason for people to watch it, maybe even outside of tennis. And I think that was one of the main things as well from kind of the whole social stuff, is like also to inspire people maybe who only play tennis a little bit to play a lot more, or people that don't play tennis to play tennis. And I think that was one of the perfect ways of kind of encapsulating my year in the best way possible to kind of do that.
Yeah, because it's an awesome way to keep that purpose of you trying to get your first point. Making a YouTube series, there's going to be no sort of lack of motivation there for you.
Yeah.
And it gives people a real picture of what it actually takes. I think we see these players on TV and we just see them winning trophies. We don't actually see the work they have to put in. So what's a sort of a day in the life or a week for you? Like, so how much sort of tennis are you doing, fitness, nutrition? Obviously you've got all your content as well that you're doing as well.
Yeah. So I think I'll start with the content side, because it kind of links into how much I can do with the tennis. The content, I've kind of managed to get it down in terms of the actual like hours. Obviously at the beginning it would take a lot longer, and now I've kind of refined the process. But obviously we'll kind of, now that we've seen it like some success, we want to do, slightly more. But obviously with tennis is like the main priority. So in terms of tennis, kind of let's say a day right now would probably look like, I have 2 tennis sessions of about 90 minutes. I think that's like 4 times a week. And then in terms of like one-to-one coaching sessions, I'll maybe have about 3 hours like during the week. It varies obviously with like tournaments and stuff. So I don't have like a super fixed like a program every week, because it's obviously a bit all over the place when I'm playing almost every week. But I'll try and get in a good maybe 2 to 3 hours of tennis per day. In terms of the fitness side of things, I have, a fitness program with my S&C coach, and he's kind of giving me workouts to do. So I'll do a mixture of kind of strength training, footwork training, and kind of speed work, kind of multiple different areas. And obviously like there's little things like injury prevention that are kind of super like underrated, I think, in my opinion, some stuff that more people should be taking a bit of a focus on. And I'll do that kind of like, I have like a routine. I'll do maybe 25 minutes like before I go to bed, like injury prevention stuff. But then in the day, I'll do like a cycle through like strength training, like aerobic stuff, a mixture of different strengthening stuff, maybe like I say an hour a day, hour and a half like session on top of the tennis. And then of course like mental stuff. I haven't actually had too much of like a focus. I don't have like a mental coach or anything, but I definitely think that if I were to have a mental coach, it would definitely like benefit me. I think maybe down the line, looking at that's something, maybe a way I can improve drastically. That would be something I'm looking at. And obviously I see a physio maybe once every 2 weeks, just to make sure everything's good, like in the body wise, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, exactly right. And as you said, when you get older, you sort of understand how important it is to look after your body. at a younger age. And same as you said with the mindset as well. When you're younger and you're at school, you don't really, it's all about your tennis and you don't really actually consider all the other aspects as much. So for sort of the kids watching like our content, a lot of them are only sort of 9 to 14 years old, and they can't play 3 hours of tennis because they've got school and other things on. But what was your sort of schedule then at high school? Like obviously with you going to school, did you do morning sessions, afternoon sessions, and when did you sort of start doing fitness side of it?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question actually, because I was throughout just up until I started secondary school. So that's like, I think maybe 12, 13 in the UK, I was doing kind of more than I did during that kind of high school period. Because for me, that was kind of a stage where I put a kind of bit more focus on school, because it was, it's harder the older you get. So I'd say probably I was trying to do as much stuff as possible, and it was very, very difficult motivation wise. So like you said, I would have to do like early morning stuff. So like those days I was getting up at like 6 a.m. to go and do some like, serves or have a session, and then obviously after school, and then balancing that with homework and stuff is really tough. So you have to have a good discipline. But I would have tried to get at least like an hour and a half a day would be kind of like what I would be aiming for, or an hour a day if I have like a 1-to-1. But just trying to keep the consistency at that point of, can I play every day and maybe have one rest day? Because, it's no point playing 3 hours, being exhausted, and then the next day you don't play at all. So it's kind of keeping that consistency. In terms of when I started doing strength and conditioning training, I think because I put such a focus on like the school element, it was obviously difficult to play tennis. But what was easy to do was kind of get into kind of the gym or do stuff, because that didn't rely on anyone else, or do like home workout, skipping. So I think from, I'd say probably the age of about 12, I was doing stuff independently in terms of stuff at home, stuff that like I said, like injury prevention stuff. But obviously before, I was kind of part of an academy, and they kind of did some stuff with me there, kind of, but that wasn't like me wanting to do it,
And
well, I obviously wanted to do it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's obviously like a really consistent schedule. Like, as you said, you have to be really, really, good at sticking to it with balancing homework, fitness, tennis. So were there any moments where you sort of lacked maybe motivation to train that day? It all became a little bit too much, or were there sort of periods with matches or anything that you sort of thought, well, why am I doing this?
I can tell you a lot more than people say. And for me, especially, because it is very, very tough, because school is one of those things, you're kind of growing through it. It's kind of a thing about kind of your age. You're learning a lot of new things, a lot of, things you're learning, kind of the friends you're making, social situations are changing. And I think that really does have an effect on your kind of your mood outside of, and obviously your mood's changing. You've got mood swings, stuff like that. So that kind of all affects the tennis side of things. And for me, I did have moments where I felt really like almost frustrated that I couldn't do more, especially when you get to the age of, I can't speak for any other countries, but within the UK, they've become, people who specialize at maybe like 13, 14 years old, who stop school, who are like your competitors up until that point. And you're almost thinking, well, I'm at school here. I'm sitting 9 hours in a classroom. Then I have homework, and I'm playing on some court in the cold, which I don't really want to do. And some guys are playing in the day with all of the facilities. And I think that's one of the biggest tests. If you can get through that stage, if you can get to a point where you're maybe 17, 18, where you maybe have a few more opportunities in terms of like I have, taking a year off, universities are, I think, a bit more flexible when it comes to like timings and working, just enjoying the process as much as you can. And everyone has those hard moments. Nobody, unless they're kind of homeschooled from the age of, 10, everyone has those things, and you just have to kind of get through them and enjoy the tennis. Tennis is like an escape. If you can enjoy it as much as possible, it's what's going to get you through.
Yeah, because especially for kids younger, they probably wouldn't have had that period yet, because it's still so new, and they absolutely love coming to training every day. But as you said, I can assure you that when you get to sort of that 14, 15, 16, things can change a little bit, and it's just about sort of getting through. And it's not saying you won't enjoy it, but there might be a few weeks where you're just like, I don't really want to train today,
I think it's also understanding that that's kind of coming up. So maybe when you're of kind of 10, 9, 10, 11, 12, with that kind of age, it's about kind of enjoying what you have as much as possible, and learning the right kind of ways of dealing with situations and learning kind of the right mental kind of mental kind of how do you say, like the right mental I've lost the word.
Toughness, fortitude.
Yeah, stuff like that kind of will help you go through those stages. And I think that's something, if you can build it at that age and you can really focus on that, or at least like learning from your kind of build a maturity, that's something you can is really useful.
And to stay with it and to know that maybe some of your competitors are doing homeschool or, you know, stuff like that, you must obviously really, really love tennis and competing. So what is it about tennis, or the competing part of it, is your favorite that keep you going?
Well, I think it's almost like within me to be kind of competitive. I've always been quite a competitive person. I remember even when I was like, you know, my dad telling me stories of when I was 3 years old, and I would say to my dad, like, first to reach that tree wins, and then just sprint as fast as I can. So I think it's kind of always been within me to be quite a competitive person, obviously in a good way. I think tennis was one of those sports where I felt that I'm in full control of what I can do, and it's something that I can do to the best of my ability. And I think that kind of resonated with me, because I'm relying on other people in a team. I think, you know, for me, I felt like I was happy with the fact that it's just me, and I'm going to try and do my best within the sport. And I kind of I like that as well.
And then that obviously relates well to playing tournaments and sort of other things that are going on in your life with playing more matches. So how important is it we'll start with more locally, how important is it to play lots of tournaments around your sort of local area, or traveling in the UK as well, do you think, for kids?
Yeah, I'd say it's important to get like that experience, but I think the more tournaments you can play, the better it is. And I think what a lot of people kind of underestimate is, a lot of people think that, okay, I have to play the biggest tournaments the whole time. I have to play, you know, the nationals. I have to play, I don't know what the circuit's like over in like New Zealand, but similar, I guess like, the national tournaments, the big events, like have to travel 400 miles. You know, and I think that's something that's super underrated. Like even up until like 16, 17, I was playing tournaments around the local area that were, you know, there were good players, but if you can win them and you can build that confidence, you can play more matches and enjoy the sports. That's the number one thing. I think tournaments is one of the ways which you can obviously put your practice into a match. And it's also the place where you probably learn the most about yourself as a person, and also obviously about your game, which you can then, you know, apply to the practice court to then improve. And it's a kind of constant cycle. So, I mean, you know, without tournaments, that cycle doesn't work. So I think that's probably the most important thing in tennis. You know, all the ATP ranking stuff is done by tournaments. So if if you can get out there, play as many events from a young age as possible and enjoy the events and, you know, have fun, you know, meet new people, that's the way you're probably going to, you know, it's going to be sustainable over time.
Yeah, exactly right. And we as a country probably don't run enough tournaments. So through like my tennis coaching business, we run like lots of small ones during the year. So, and as you said, that's for parents and players to then be able to compete.
That's great.
You know, at an event, rather than spend lots of money to go, you know, across to the North Island or across the country, basically to play all these big tournaments, which is good. We want to do that, but to have those small tournaments as well is really, really important. Going into sort of playing overseas and in different environments now. So I remember watching some of your YouTube videos a while ago, and I think I remember you playing in like Germany on clay.
Germany.
At different sort of events. So we don't have any clay in New Zealand, unfortunately. But how important do you think it is just playing on different surfaces in different environments against people that you don't even know of?
I think it's a very different experience. I have to say, because when you're playing within your kind of nation, you know the players and you know who you're playing, you know, especially the higher levels you get. And when you go to kind of a different environment, it almost teaches you to kind of adapt in a slightly different way. I think it kind of teaches you to learn more about the sport from a kind of tactical point of view, because, you know, you don't know any of the players, you haven't seen them play, you don't have rivalries. It's a lot less kind of personal a little bit. It becomes more about just winning the match and moving on. I think something that you can kind of apply from tournaments at home is kind of, you know, just practicing playing the matches. And I mean, when you go to those different kind of environments, you have to be ready mentally more than kind of physically, tennis wise. And it's a great experience to kind of build up that kind of that feeling of being somewhere new and playing, because I know a lot of players that kind of, you know, maybe at my level, slightly a bit higher than my level on like the professional tour, you know, all of that is just traveling week in, week out. And that's something, I guess, if you can be exposed to a little bit, not crazy amount, but just a little bit at a young age, it helps you to kind of ease into it. So it's not just a shock when you then have to travel to different countries on the juniors tour, or even on the kind of the futures tour when you have to go to like Egypt or something. So it kind of, it's good, a very, very good experience in my opinion. You learn a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a very underrated thing about tennis, is actually how different it is for players to play on different sort of courts, because often you see people on TV, and for people that don't maybe know tennis fully, you just see a tennis court, and it's actually not like that. It's not like a basketball match. Every court's, you know, the same. It's so dependent on weather, court surface, bounce, how fast the courts are. Is the player jet lagged? So sort of really want to make sure like kids aren't going to maybe nationals as their first tournament outside of their own city, because it's really probably quite new and bizarre to them. So just getting that experience, as you said, is pretty important. And speaking of experience, you recently saw on Instagram you managed to go to the Mitroglou Academy, which is pretty cool. So how did that sort of come about?
Well, I was actually invited as part of a camp by Dunlop, so my racket sponsor. And so they kind of said like we host like one camp for like a lot of the people that we sponsor throughout the year. And originally it got cancelled because of COVID, and then they rescheduled to like 6 months later. So I'm happy that it happened. And so then we went out there, and I love the experience. It was something new that it's well worth kind of experiencing, you know, life from a different perspective as a tennis player, because it's very easy to see your kind of your local club and your surroundings and almost feel like there's nothing else. And then you go somewhere like that, or I guess a bigger academy or whatever, and then you see, okay, there are the new people, different style of coaching. I think that's one of the main things I saw, was just a totally different like mindset from coaches, like not in like positive negative way, but in more of a kind of just a different style of coaching. I think when you're exposed to that, it really helps you to develop as a player, because then you're not getting like one, you know, coach's perspective or one like academy's perspective, because I think each academy almost has its own like set of values and you know, what they kind of obviously positive, but some academies are different to others. And for me, going to Mitroglou was a great experience, because I did learn a lot about, you know, what they stood for. And I think I took a few things away that I think, you know, that maybe I haven't learned here, if that makes sense. So that kind of, you know, that kind of passed over a little bit. And I thought it was a great experience. I got to play with loads of, you know, awesome players. I got to play on clay, which they don't have that much here in the UK either. I know you said they don't have many in New Zealand either, which was amazing. And then obviously, you know, I met Patrick himself as well, which was a crazy experience. And I just had a great time overall.
Yeah, I know that's pretty fortunate. And what sort of like a week like there? Because I think you spent a week there. Is that right?
Yeah. Well,
so what does it sort of entail being part of academy? Because I know the cost is really, really big. So what are you sort of getting for that cost? I know some players do players end up living there? I'm not sure, but how much sort of tennis, gym and stuff are you actually, you know, doing per day? Because it seems quite full on.
So I think you have to kind of split it up into kind of two areas, because you have the elite players, which are like, I guess, the people that I was training with that are there like full time to become professionals. And then you have the people who are there kind of studying, so that they do a thing where you can do the school within your kind of tennis system. So I can only really speak for the hours of like the elite players. You know, I wasn't part of the other program, you know. But what I was doing was 2 tennis sessions of 90 minutes a day, so 3 hours a day, plus 1.5 hours of strength and conditioning training per day. And then they had like these recovery kind of sessions in the evening where you'd have these like compression boots that you'd put on, and that would like draw blood to like the leg muscles and stuff like that, and like make it like nice and kind of, I guess, fresh. And then ice and heat bath, kind of like hot and cold water, which was pretty like cool. I guess a new experience, because you have to have pretty good facilities to be able to like offer that. You know, I found it amazing. So yeah, in terms of what a day would look like, that would mainly be it. And obviously when you're not training or either like eating or doing post training, like stretching and stuff. So it was pretty like intense and full on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, to all the kids watching, I'd highly recommend to watch that video where there's a few videos, I think like 2 or 3. And yeah, just to actually look at the facilities alone is like blows my mind. So yeah, definitely check that out. Sort of just final question before we get into like a quick fire to finish. Any sort of goals you have for tennis? Obviously, we sort of know, you know, you're trying to get a professional point, but is there anything else? And is there anything for your sort of social media platforms?
I'd probably say in terms of my tennis, like my ultimate aim, I guess, is to be able to make a living out of tennis. I think that's something that every tennis player dreams to be able to do, to make money and to make a living off the sport that you love. That was like my initial kind of goal from tennis. It's not like a number, because for me, it doesn't matter whether I'm, you know, number 44 or number 57, like, or 120, as long as I'm playing those the highest level of events, because you do have to play high level events to make your money back with tennis, because you're not going to make it back at like 300 in the world. So I think that that's kind of, I guess, my ultimate aim. Whether it happens or not, I'm still going to have enjoyed the journey. That's the main thing. You know, I want to hold myself to the fact that I'm not going to be disappointed if that doesn't happen, because realistically, not many people make that a reality. But I'm going to try my absolute best, and go as high as I can, I guess, in the rankings. Try and play the big tournaments, Grand Slams. That's obviously a goal of mine as well. And I guess with the YouTube, the overall aim, looking at it, is to kind of inspire as many people as possible to take up the sport of tennis, or to play more tennis than they do now, or you know, just get that love of the game back. And I think, or even like allow people who have played tennis that don't play anymore to kind of relive the experience of what it's like, or give them some information. So kind of all of those kind of aspects together, I want to kind of create, you know, a place where people can like learn, enjoy, and also be motivated to pick up a racket. Because I think at the end of the day, you know, tennis needs something that kind of helps it grow, because I guess with all sports, that's kind of one of the main ways that they survive. And I want to make sure that, or at least play a small role in helping tennis to stay alive.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Or to grow as well.
Yeah. And your videos are, I think, you know, educational as well, because let's say you had a video with like a, I don't know, like a US college scholarship tennis player, like for someone watching, like a 10-year-old, that's actually really cool to see what the sort of level is. So having those sort of videos, I think, is really cool. It gives something for people to maybe strive for, and to sort of get like a visual view. Because again, for kids, it's quite hard to know sort of where they're at and where they need to be. Again, watching on TV doesn't really do it justice. It's actually more impressive watching it live. So yeah, we'll finish off with a quick fire. So the first question was, what's one piece of advice you would have for someone trying to go professional?
I'd probably say enjoy and trust the process. So just enjoy every moment of your tennis journey, because you're not going to relive it again. You know, it's a constantly moving and evolving journey that you have. So if you can enjoy every moment, make the most of every opportunity, then you're going to do the best, and you're going to live with like no regrets. Yeah,
no, I like that. And that's sort of what you're doing, because you want to be professional, but if you don't do it, you're okay with that, because you've enjoyed the process, and you're not too focused on that destination. So that's cool. What's your favorite go-to fitness exercise?
I'd probably say, I'm pretty big in the weight room, so I'd probably say the back squat. For me, I guess people watching probably slightly younger in age probably wouldn't know much about the gym, but once you do, back squat for me is one of my favorite exercises.
Awesome. What was your biggest strength and weakness? You can do this with your like personal, you know, life or character, or you can do it on the tennis court. Up to you.
I'll probably say on the tennis court, because I think it's the easiest to kind of say. I'd probably say my strength is probably my forehand. Like I'm like to be super aggressive with it, and like when I hit it, it works. Probably my biggest weakness is that I'm too nice when I'm kind of coming into the net. It's so underrated being able to be ruthless and put balls away when you're coming in, and not just try and set up the next shot. Like if you have the opportunity, go for it and try and hit a good shot. Like not just kind of, oh, I'm going to come in out of nowhere willy-nilly and then, I've got a tough volley. Because I think that's something I'm working on a lot at the moment, is just being ruthless with that.
Yeah, that's so true. When people come to net, they just think like, oh, I had a good approach shot, I'll just run to net. But it's like you actually need to like sprint to net, you know?
Yeah, you've got to be all over it.
Yeah, it's not really like taught. You wonder why you're hitting so many volleys like at the service line. It's because you're not getting them. But yeah, again, it's like a real underrated thing. Maybe coaches, don't really talk about enough. What are you most grateful for?
I'm gonna have to say my parents. I can't lie, because they're the people that actually facilitated this whole process happening, I guess, financially, up until kind of the last year. I began to help them as much as possible with what I'm making from like social media, but obviously nowhere near even covering the costs at the moment still. So the financial effort, the time effort that time commitment that they've put in is just honestly, like, from my perspective, like, had the utmost respect from my behalf, because without them the whole journey wouldn't have been possible. And I think any kids that are on a tennis journey should really appreciate their parents or the people making the journey possible, because without them, realistically, it's not going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. And we had a podcast a few weeks ago, and they said that something small, like after every private lesson you have, just thank your parents. Something small like that, I think is really, really cool. Sure. Last question is, what does success mean for you?
Does that mean like tennis wise, or just like philosophical?
Again, you can do either.
I'll do both. So for me, kind of success in like the general sense would be being like internally proud of what I've achieved and having no regrets in terms of wishing I'd done stuff differently, being ultimately happy with what I've achieved and like proud of what I've done, basically. And then I guess within the tennis, we touched on it before, but being able to make a living off tennis would be, I guess, success in my eyes. And then anything onwards from that would be obviously a bonus. And then of course with the social stuff, just making, broadening the reach of tennis as a whole. And I think the whole social media scene is obviously helping to do that, and hopefully we can play a small role in helping and inspiring people to pick up a racket or play more tennis.
Awesome. It's a really, really good answer. So anyone watching, I highly recommend to go onto Tennis Brothers YouTube channel, especially the Road to 1 ATP Point series, because I just think that series is it's just really high quality and very educational. So I think definitely check that out. And anything else you want to sort of plug in terms of like Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff? Or
I mean, we just started TikTok like 5 days ago, so it's just tennisbrothers.official. I mean, go check it out. I mean, I'm pretty new to the whole TikTok thing, but I thought I might as well hop on the trend a little bit.
I know.
Only just started it. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, well, it's good. You just do trick shots and all those short points and stuff. I'm sure it'll go well.
Yeah, I'll bring back the tennis stereotypes.
Yes, yeah, that'll work well on TikTok.
I was brainstorming a few ideas, so maybe we get a few stuff like that on there, a bit more kind of like funny short stuff. That'll be pretty good.
No, I think that'd be awesome. All right, well, thanks so much for chatting, and best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you. It was great talking to you.
Cheers.